So here's part two. Earlier, the flip phone was going, and the flip camera, was going, and it said that it had 4 hours, but that meant that it was 4 hours of like room for data, not the battery. So the battery ended up dying, and really the only thing that you guys missed was that I drew some straps on the thighs and added his kind of tattered cloak and scarf thing. So now I just take a nice eraser and I'm erasing all pencil. Creating a whole bunch of these big, nasty, slug-like rubbery shavings that I'm going to put in the floor. And then my feet are going to roll over and it's going to feel really gross, but I will do nothing about it. I will vacuum it eventually, but in the meantime, yeah, it's just going to roll around on my feet and be sick. So the next stage is kind of popping some of the areas out a little bit. It's basically inked, but there's very little definition. So what I'm going to do is I go back in with the pen. Now a smart person would probably pick a thicker pen than I inked all of this with like a 01 Secure and Micron. Now the smart thing would be if I grabbed a 2 or a 3 or even a 5, and that would make this a lot easier, but I'm dumb. I like kind of varying the line weights a little bit sometimes in some of the curves. And I find that if you just kind of take a thicker one, a thicker pen, you kind of don't get what you want. And this would be even easier if I did it with a brush, but the brush kind of creates a more organic and a different feel. And maybe I'll do a thing on brush pens sometime, but honestly, like if you're gonna go with like brush pens, I would go with go watch Jake Parker work, Agent 44, and he's like an old buddy of mine from online that I've only met in person once in 2004 at the Comic-Con. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird like talking to somebody every day and not really knowing them in person. Like I feel like I know his kids and I've never met any of his kids or his wife. But yeah, Jake and I share a lot of the same design sensibilities in a lot of ways. I wish I could draw as good as him, but we'll do what we can. Hopefully, like you guys will be able to see this a little bit better with the end. So I just thicken up, like I just thicken up the arm thing. I'm gonna leave the energy blade just one, and then one like kind of like pen width. All right, now we'll pop out his head and his chin kerchief, whatever it is, loincloth. It's like a scarf, but it runs all the way to the ground. Oh, and then of course, pop the eyes out a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty funny that I was finishing up some of the penciling stuff, looked over at the camera, and it died. So that was smart. I'll double check from time to time, but pretty much like I'll stop this and restart it when it comes to scanning. That's boring. That's the boring part. I added a little nub over here because I kind of got off scale with the head nubbin over here on the right side of his head. So I created like a little kind of balance point. Even though he doesn't have it in real life, it'll kind of balance that out a little bit since I went ahead and inked it. And currently uploading the first part. It was about 25 minutes, so like honestly, like it's probably better that like I kind of break this up into 2 or 3 little movies. No one wants to sit through like an hour-long thing. Like you can, like now is the age of like watching stuff when you want to. I'm really bad about, like, I think it took me like 2 or 3 days to watch like an episode of something because I just watched 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. But the main idea of what I'm embellishing is that like I'm kind of just popping out certain things. Now the color will help as well, but for the most part I want to kind of make sure the forearm pops out from the arm, and like the arm pops out from this like kind of shoulder croissant thing, this baked ware that he has. You don't have to do it all. I'm just going to kind of do it in one big block. Usually, like if I'm doing a scene or drawing out, I treat it like 3D, and I kind of pick line weights to create like 2 or 3 different planes in the background. And so like you want to kind of do the same thing here. So it's kind of like his head, this forearm, the hand, and like maybe like that kneecap. Those will stand out in like the foreground to be like one plane, and then like it'll kind of back up each plane after that, if that made any sense at all. It's kind of like a weird visual trick to simplify it, but you're also popping things out. And again, I should use like a thicker pen, but at the same time, I've got more control. I've got more control over just like kind of like using like a number 1 and making it do what I need to, instead of like constantly switching pens. There is an artist I always admired, Steve Purcell. He used to do the Sam and Max comics, and he used to work for LucasArts, and now he works for Pixar. And he co-directed Brave, and he directed that straight to TV. It was on ABC, the Toy Story story that time forgot, the one with the awesome battle stars. Steve Purcell used to live with Mike Mignola and Art Adams and Steve Moncuce of Fish Police in the Bay Area, and they all kind of developed a similar style to each other. And but you could tell that Steve was the one that used brushes, while Art Adams and Mike Mignola kind of like used like, Sharpies and stuff like that. But you could kind of tell that there was like this brush-like feel for Steve's work. And what's funny is that for years, because of my left-handedness and like my hand like dragging across the screen or whatever, I never like really learned how to do a brush. What I did was I would fake it. I would fake a brush stroke by like kind of varying the pen weights and kind of just creating like a brush-like look. Well, much later on, I read an interview with Steve Purcell where in actuality he was doing the same thing I was. He never learned how to use the brush either. He was just kind of faking it with a pen. Now, in the meantime, I have learned how to use the brush. and you can create some like really cool, really, I don't know, it's kind of weird. I've gotten some like a lot of compliments on my brush work because it looks like that I drew it, but at the same time people say it doesn't look like my stuff, like that. Like usually my style is this very weird kind of, like stark, very clean coloring book looking, which of course, like I got to take as a compliment. I mean, like I kind of really work on trying to make it as clean as possible and as accessible as possible. But yeah, the brush definitely brings out something. Yeah, I definitely need to do another video of just like using stuff with the brush. But at the same time, if you want some awesome stuff right now, like look up Jake Parker. He has a Kickstarter going on right now too. And as long as I've known Jake, he's been doing sketches for this Kickstarter. They've always ended up in like other projects, but it's very funny to kind of be kind of along for the ride, even though that he'd probably come up with the initial designs probably a year or two before I met him, that I've seen over the past, like probably, it's probably been at least 16 years I've known him. Well, is it that much? Maybe not that much. Well, no, it's been at least 12 or 13. Because he has kids that are early teens now. Time flies when you're stuck at work. And but yeah, I always think it's funny that you always have an idea of how someone works and how someone's style comes from where. Because in the beginning, Mike Mignola actually like shared a kind of very similar style to Steve. I mean, not Steve. Yeah, Steve Purcell. I always felt bad that I met Steve's wife, Colette Michaud, when she worked for Lucas Learning, which was kind of an offshoot. It was like a educational programming, educational games for like LucasArts, and so I got to go out and try out for a position there, but it turned out that they were wanting me to become an art director, and I just had no experience at the time. I was like maybe, like 22, something like that, and like I'd never worked anywhere, and I just couldn't do the job, and I felt like such a doofus flying all the way out there, and like kind of I blew the art test because I just didn't know what to do, and it all worked out in the end because like I would have like been away from loved ones, and like life kind of, even though it's a bummer I didn't get to work for Lucas, at the same time Lucas Learning didn't last all that long. I think it only lasted like a year, but what would have been really cool is that Scott Campbell, is that his name? That's his name. Scott Campbell worked there, and so like if I had gotten the job, I would have been his art director, and that would have been really weird. Mainly because I think that he's a lot more creative than I am. But so if I had kept the job, he would have made me look like an idiot, and then I would have cried in the bathroom more than I do now. I don't really cry in the bathroom much. So just breaking these blocks up, and then pop his loincloth out a little bit, embellish that. But instead of Lucas Learning, I ended up working in North Carolina teaching grade school art, which was awesome. And then I moved on, and then eventually worked in video games here in Central Florida. And I got to teach for 10 years, and now I'm back to freelancing. Which, freelancing is, I think, Latin for waiting on checks. And so, like, right now I'm waiting on checks for work I've done or work that I'm about to do. I have a really cool project coming up soon, but I can't talk about it yet. And that'll be some money coming in. Over me drawing all the characters from Heroes of the Storm for free. I just noticed tonight that I posted the other two Protoss characters, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on them. And so now I get to share the actual drawing of the third with you fellas online forever as I blab. If I make a lot more videos, I'll try to find some license-free music, maybe some techno stuff, so, you know, I can kind of, like, you know, do a cool guy voice and, like, take you guys to Flavor Town and stuff like that. Do, like, a Guy Fieri. Hey, dudes. This is how to make that, that Protossian loincloth, like, pop, dude. Bro. My hand in the way? Am I being a bad art host? Is it just 90% in the way? Didn't erase well enough. And when I say the Scott Campbell from before, I don't mean like that J. Scott Campbell. I don't mean the Danger Girl guy. Although I have worked with him before. I worked on his video game. I worked on the Danger Girl video game. Well, I just came in at the very end and designed the last level. But I still haven't played it, so I don't know. I don't know if it's like really, if the game still works or not. It was for PS1. That was ages ago. I'm talking about the Scott Campbell that does stuff for Double Fine. And he has the really cute paintings and all that. So I got to meet him at Heroes Con in a couple years back. Very nice dude. Hopefully I haven't rambled too much. Alright, let me see. Yeah, I don't know if I should. Yeah, maybe I should pop this out a little bit. Pop out that little chest harness thing. And so there you go. That's the basic inks. And then like I guess in the next one we'll color this baby.